In this chapter about transformations, let's go to the Basics folder. Then I'm going to open the Landscapes photo. Now let's import the photo of the butterfly into the landscape. For that, I'm going to go to the menu File, then choose Place Embedded, then choose the photo of the butterfly. As you can see, this image is a PNG file. It's not a JPEG. A PNG file is a file which contains transparency. There's no need to cut out the image. Okay? Each time you import an image, there is a frame of transformation. So from here, I can click on the corner handle to scale down the image. As you can see, by default, the transformation is proportional. But if I press down the Shift key, I can stretch the image. I can stretch the width or stretch the height. Sometimes it's useful to stretch the image. So I can adjust the size of the image. Then if I click inside of the frame, I can move freely the butterfly in the sky, just like so. If my cursor is outside of the frame, the icon of my cursor changes. There is a circular double arrow. And if I click and drag, I can rotate the butterfly from its center, from this target point. If I move the target point to this corner, like so, I will be able to rotate from this target point, just like that. It also works when you scale the image. Just press down the Alt key or Option on Mac. Let me go back. Now at the bottom, there is a contextual bar. From here, I can flip the image horizontally, vertically, just like that. It's quick and easy. If I right-click on the frame, I can also access to these options. Flip horizontal or flip vertical. If I want to apply the changes, I can click on this check mark right here, or I simply hit the Enter key on my keyboard. Just like that. My transformations are applied. That's important. From here, if I want to transform again my butterfly, I need to select the butterfly's layer in the Layers panel. Then in the contextual bar, I can click on this button right here that says Transform Image. If I click on this button, I can retransform the butterfly, because there is a frame of transformation. Click on a corner to adjust the size of the butterfly. Hit Enter to apply the changes. Let me show you another way to do that. If I hit Ctrl-T or Command-T on Mac, I can transform the image. This is a shortcut, so it's up to you. Hit Enter to validate. So from the contextual bar, you can transform the image, you can scale the image, you can rotate the image, you can flip the image, and you can also move the image. These are the basics of transformations. You really need to know how to do that. Voilà, that's all for this lesson. In this chapter about transformations, let's open the Distort folder. Then let's open the image called Frame, just like so. Now I'm going to import a new image to put into the frame. Let's go to the menu File, then choose Place Embedded, and I choose the photo of the poster. Then I can click on the corner handle to reduce the size of the image, hit Enter to validate the transformation of the image, click inside the frame and move the poster. As you can see in the Layers panel, when an image is imported, the layer is a smart object. That's a good point, because all the transformations will be reversible. I'm going to hit Ctrl-T or Command-T on Mac to display the frame of transformation, and then I can right-click, then choose the Distort option. Now if I click on the corner of the frame of transformation, I can move the corner to give the image a perspective. Same thing for this corner, I can distort the poster. Click and move the corner at the bottom left to match the perspective of the image. Same thing for this corner, and it's done. I'm going to click on this check mark to apply the distortion. As simple as that. Now, as I told you, because I use a smart object, if I transform again the image, I hit Ctrl-T for example, and as you can see, the handles are still at the same position. I right-click, then choose Distort, then adjust the perspective. Let's zoom in to be more precise. Let's make it pixel perfect. Another solution is to press down the Control key or Command on Mac, then click on the corner. Adjust the position of the handle to match the perspective. Finally, hit Enter to validate. Double-click on the Hand tool to see the entire image. To sum up, the Distort function is very useful to change the perspective of an image. You can access to this option from the frame of transformation. Voilà, that's all for this lesson. in this chapter about transformations. Let's open the warp folder. Then open the flagpole image, just like that. First of all, let's import the flag into this image. For that, I go to the menu File, then choose Place Embedded and choose the flag. There is a frame of transformation. I click on the corner handle to reduce the size of the flag. Hit Enter to validate. As you can see in the Layers panel, there is a new layer which is imported, the flags layer. And because the file is imported, there is a small icon right here, which means this layer is a smart object. So I can transform it multiple times without losing quality. Now I'm going to click on this button Transform Image, and from the frame of transformation, I can right-click, then choose Warp. Just like that. As you can see, there is a blue grid on the flag. The grid is divided into 6 rectangles. If I want, I can click on the corner to change the shape of the flag, just like so. I can click on the corner to change the shape, click and move the point. At the corner, I can also move a handle to adjust the curve of the shape. Same thing right here. I can click on this handle to adjust the curve of the edge, like so. This one again. For each corner, there is a handle to adjust the curve. It's as simple as that. I can also click inside of the grid to change the shape of the flag. I'm going to slightly move this handle to adjust the curve right here. The goal is to make it realistic. Alright. At the top in the options bar, if I want to be more specific, I can split again the grid. I can split vertically. If I click, a new division is created. So now I can be more precise. I can move the new handles or the new points. I can really fine-tune the shape of the flag with this new division. So you can split the grid horizontally, vertically, crosswise, if you want to be more specific. Okay, let's validate the warp with the Enter key. And because I use a smart object, I can transform again my image. If I right-click, then choose Warp, as you can see, the changes are memorized. It's totally reversible because I use a smart object. I can move the handles, warp the flag again and again without losing quality. You can also use this feature for tattoos, for example. It's like warping a surface. Voilà, that's all for this lesson. In this chapter about transformations, let's open the folder Geometrical Warp. Then I double-click on the PSD file Hot Air Balloon. The file is opened, and as you can see in the Layers panel, there are 2 layers, the balloon and the background. If I select the balloon, it's a smart object because I imported the file. It means all the transformations that I will do will be reversible. Now the goal is to warp the balloon by using geometrical warps. For that, let's click on this button in the contextual bar Transform Image. Now I'm going to right-click, then choose Warp. This is a standard deformation. You can warp the object like a piece of paper. If I click and drag, I can distort freely the balloon. This is useful to warp a flag, a piece of paper, a tattoo, for example. It is an organic deformation, so I can distort freely the balloon. Okay, let me reset the warp with this button. Now if I go at the top in the options bar, I can change the mode of the warp. If I click, there is a list of geometrical warps. I can choose arc, for example, which is one of the most used deformation. As you can see, the balloon is curved. Then I can click on the square handle right here to increase or decrease the deformation. So let me show you that. As you can see, if I click and drag, I can modify the shape of the balloon. The value can be positive or negative. It's up to you. Just click and drag the top handle. As simple as that. Let's try another warp, like bulge. Click on the little square to change the bend. Try to keep it realistic, don't warp too much. Then let me show you inflate, for example. You can contract or inflate the shape of the balloon, just like that. It's a smart object, so I can distort again the balloon. It's totally reversible. So if I click on the Transform Image button, then right-click and choose Warp, as you can see, Warp Inflate is memorized, and the value of the bend is also memorized. Let me show you the squeeze deformation, for example. I think you get the idea. Just click on the square handle to adjust the warp, so I can totally change the shape of the balloon. Lastly, let me show you shell upper. Click on the handle to curve the shape. Alright. There are a lot of geometrical warps. The choice depends on the object. You can use a warp to adjust a label on a bottle, the cylinder warp, for example. There are a lot of choices. To conclude, click on the Transform Image button right here, and with the frame of transformation visible, I right-click, then choose Warp. Now in the options bar, you can choose different geometrical warps, such as arc, arch, inflate, bulge, etc. So it's up to you and it depends on the context and the object. Voila, that's all for this lesson. In this chapter about transformations, let's open the Puppet Warp folder. Then I open the PSD file of the dancer, just like that. As you can see in the Layers panel, there are two layers, the dancer and the landscape. In this PSD file, the dancer is detached from the background. It's a transparent image. Indeed, on the thumbnail, there are small squares. In this exercise, the goal is to change the posture of the dancer. For that, let's select the layer of the dancer, then right-click and choose Convert to Smart Object. By using a Smart Object, all my transformations will be reversible. Now I'm gonna go to the menu Edit, then choose Puppet Warp. OK. From here, it's very simple. I can click directly on the subject to add a pin. Firstly, I need to add a pin on the center of gravity of the subject to stabilize it. It's very important. Then I can add a pin on the neck, for example. So if I click on the blue pin, then move the mouse, I can rotate the subject. I can also stretch the subject in relation to the center. It's as if the subject is pinned to the wall. I can also add a pin on the knee. As you can see, if I move the pin, the posture changes. The move of the knee is relative to the center of gravity of the subject. I can click on the other knee to add a pin. I can click on the ankle to add a new pin, then move the foot, just like so. I can easily change the posture of the subject. I can click on the elbow to add a pin, then move the arm. I can click on the wrist to add a point, then move the hand. I can also click on the fingers, just like so. I can click on the wrist, click on the fingers to move the hand. I can click on the head to add a pin, then move the head. Once satisfied, hit the Enter key to validate. As you can see in the Layers panel, because I used the Smart Object, the deformation is always reversible. If I double-click on the name of the deformation, I can change again the position of the pins. If I want to remove a pin, just select the pin, right-click and choose Delete Pin. To remove all the pins, choose Remove All Pins. As simple as that. Another solution is to hit the Delete key, select the pin, then hit the Delete key on your keyboard. Finally, let me show you a last thing. If you want to change the posture of the subject, you can also click on the pin, then hold the Alt key or Option on Mac, and click and drag to rotate the articulation. So now the posture is more natural. Let me show you the same thing for the neck. Hold the Alt key or Option on Mac, then click and drag to rotate the head. So there are two ways to move the pins, simply by clicking and moving the pin, or you can hold the Alt key or Option on Mac, then click and drag to rotate the articulation. Voila, that's all for this lesson.